actually live? I don't know if I'm actually live. Let's see. Let's see if that actually worked. It's having nothing but technology issues today. So let's see if that actually worked. I'm gonna go here. And okay, looks like I'm going live. Send this over. Okay, let's see here. Got some interesting hair today. Hope you're having a beautiful March 29th. The solar eclipse has happened. Don't know if anybody's feeling a little interesting or strange. Only attempted to do this live multiple times. I actually wanted to do it from my laptop and I couldn't. Kaya, please. TV and Derlin. Can you say hi? Hi, Kayla. Or TV and Derlin. Oh, there's my off-hinge dogs. Don't mind that. And hello, Isaiah and Bryce. Hello. Do you want to go close the door, please? Get them out of my room so they don't get triggered. I hope you guys are having a great day. Are you guys doing anything exciting for your Saturdays? Maybe it's your morning, your afternoon, your night. I don't know what time of day it is where you are. Hello, Emmett. Thank you for joining me. I hope this will be worth your time. Oh, well, thank you, Bryce. You're a beautiful soul as well. Oh, happy birthday, Jaden. That's wonderful. You're having a great birthday. It's interesting times, definitely. I hope that you're having a great day. Hello, Owen. Hope you're having a great day, too. Oh, nice. You're going to go play some basketball? Sweet. That is a lot of fun. Actually, when I used to work corporate, we'd have these corporate challenge events. So like different corporations, you could volunteer and then we'd play games against each other. So like different sports. And I was part of the basketball. Man, did we get our butts kicked because it was a mix. So it was men and women playing basketball. So you had like you had to have so many women and men on each team. And the women that were playing against us were so tall. I'm pretty tall. I'm almost like just under 5'8". They were ginormous. And we got our butts kicked. I was like, wow, I'm out of my league because I don't know where you got these superstars from. Did you hire them just to play for this corporate, like fun event? Oh, hello, Vero. God bless you as well. Like this is some interesting spiritual times, and I appreciate that. To play basketball tomorrow. Nice. Well, hopefully you're up in your own league and that you're not going to be output by giant people. And that and then you're like, wow, I was not prepared for that, right? So I came on, I wanted to chat, pull some stuff. Your boy Carson. Hello. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me in the chat today. I thought I'd come in, there's a lot going on and I want to see like the state of how everybody is going. What's up? Chaos, that's what I'd say. Some chaos, some good stuff. It's sunny right here. It's supposed to rain. How is it over where you guys are? I'd love to hear how you're doing. My day's going pretty good so far, Owen. I literally got up and was like, I want to do a live. I want to speak and talk to everybody and see how they're doing. Hello, Kimberly. Yeah, you can see my golden doodle back there. He's spying on the neighbors. He'll literally just sit there spying. The neighbors have a dog you can see, and then usually a squirrel comes by, and then chaos ensues once the squirrel comes by because, why wouldn't, chaos ensue with a squirrel? Now, I wanted to do a mental check-in because I know like this is some interesting times and I want to know how everybody else is feeling where you are in the world. Like I'm in North America. Right now I'm in the southern states. I'll be heading back. I'm actually Canadian, so I'll be heading back to Canada in the next week. And there's a lot of craziness. You're from Texas? It's pretty sunny there? Perfect. How is the mental state of the people in Texas? I'd love to know. Can I just call you Carson to make it short, or your boy Carson? Because I don't know, people in Canada are losing their minds. And no offense if you're Canadian, because I am Canadian, but there's some weird things going on and I don't really understand what is happening. So I wanted to get a feel out of where you are and how is everybody doing there? Like, are people okay? I don't know if they're okay. I don't. I don't know if I barely know if I'm okay. But I want to, how is everybody else really doing? There's such weird things going on. Like we have this insanity going on in Canada where people are extremely mad at the US, specifically to your President Trump. And it's kind of weird, especially with this tariffs thing, and how angry they are because Canadians have always had tariffs on a lot of American products, like 200% tariffs on like milk products. Yet now that, your president is trying to balance things out, try to make things fair, people are losing their minds. It's really weird. There's a lot of people that are jumping onto things without doing any research. And I really wonder, what's the incentive to jump onto things without actually investigating what is actually happening? Because there is a lot of information you're not getting told if you're just watching mainstream media, right? So I do wonder what is really happening. We have also what's coming in place is that when I come back to the US, if I stay longer than 30 days, I have to do some paperwork. I have to let your government know that I'm here, which is, I think it's fair enough. We travel a lot, and there's certain places you go in the world, and you go for any length of time, you have to have a visa, you have to have extra papers, you've got to have your stamp, or you can't leave. Like you go to Mexico, and you get that little sticker thing, and if you don't have it, you get fined, right? Just don't go downtown. I've been to Texas. I haven't been to Houston, but that's good to know. Like you've got a really beautiful, huge state. Like that is a huge state, Texas. Coming back to kind of going off tangent, I might have some ADHD and get like, woo, distracted by some comments here. I find it very interesting because really you only have to do this if you're coming down to the States for over 30 days. And I think it's fair enough, especially if you're cleaning up and getting rid of all these illegal people that have been in your country. I think that is a totally valid thing. I'm not offended by that. However, it's very interesting on how a lot of people in Canada are losing their minds. There was somebody that compared this documentation to being on the watch list if you did crimes against children, which I'm like, that's kind of extreme. And it's really weird. A Houston Astros game? Oh, I bet that's a lot of fun to go to. Like with sporting events are always a lot of fun to go to. And I have to respect here how it's very different than in Canada. Like when in Canada, we sing the national anthem, and unfortunately I've been embarrassed by what's happened where recently at some hockey games, American anthem had been booed in Canada, which is really that does not represent the same people in Canada. Like that is an awful thing, really. But I do respect how much you guys really respect your country. And, you know, like in Canada, people won't even necessarily take their hats off when they're doing the national anthem, and you guys do, and you got your flag, and you're all looking at the flag as you go through it. Like, I really do respect how much you guys love your country. Canadians are now attempting to love their country and are losing their minds, but it's a weird irony because with traveling, there was actually a period in these last few years where a good portion of people in Canada couldn't even travel within Canada. So didn't matter, you couldn't travel if you didn't have the right documentations. So you couldn't go on a plane in our own country, couldn't take a train, and couldn't take a bus. Nobody in Canada, there was few, except for those that were affected by it, seemed to really care. And now, because of these Trump wanting to know if you're going to be here more than 30 days and have these documentations, now everyone's losing their minds. It's this weird thing where, like, you didn't care when your neighbors couldn't travel in your own country, but now you're angry because they want to know if you're going to be in that another country that's not your country for over 30 days. I don't really understand. Does any, if you can understand it, please, like, let me know in the chat. I'd love to understand this weird click. And the only thing I see different is when this was happening, the last number of years where a portion of our society couldn't freely travel within our own country, you guys were welcome. Like if you're in the US, you easily could travel. But if you were if you were in Canada, you could not you could not travel, and you couldn't leave the country without the right documentations. And because media supported that was okay. But now because the media is getting people all up in a tizzy, people are losing their minds because if you stay longer than 30 days, you have to do some documentation. And it's weird because they're doing a lot of propaganda saying, oh, they want fingerprints and they want this and that. And that's not actually true when you start actually looking at the information. So it's weird. And Canada is beautiful. Like, it is actually a beautiful physical country. At this point right now, I don't know how mentally stable it is. Like that's actually my concern. My concern is we've got TDS bad, and people are losing their minds. Our economy is not in a good state. And I know in the US, like, you guys are struggling as well. But our economy is doing worse than your economy. And they've somehow convinced a good portion of Canadians that it all has to do with these tariffs, which have been implemented yet. That doesn't explain how bad our economy has been for now years. But somehow it's now Trump's fault because of these tariffs. And then they don't really understand how tariffs work, and going into a tariff war affects the economy worse as putting more tariffs on, because it just makes everything more expensive. And it is really expensive. Like, our dollar is very weak, and it's very expensive to be in Canada. It's not a cheap place to visit. So I don't know. I don't know, and I'd like to really understand what is happening and how people could be blinded to one thing, and then because it has to do with your president, now they're like losing their minds. I don't really get that. It confuses me that it's like they've forgotten everything we've experienced since 2020, and or is it just the media has so much control over people's minds if you're watching the media? Because if you stop and look at things and think about them and look at them critically, it's like, I don't understand this mass hysteria, and it's causing such division. So we're in a very divisive time, and it's really unfortunate because we are all common, we're all humanity, and we're being divided and fighting each other versus coming together and really just knowing that we all have a common problem. Whether you're in Canada or the US, we do actually have a common problem. And it's really unfortunate that we're, fighting each other. We're finding the Teslas being burnt down, and, keying people that have Teslas. Like, what? And then you find out that some of them are paid to do that. And then you have to really question what is going on. But you're not going to hear on the mainstream media any of that stuff. So especially in Canada, we're very, very censored, very censored. Like they want to disallow us having access to X during this election season. If they can't control it, they want to shut it down. And that is absolutely terrifying. And then that makes me very concerned for people's mental health, because when you're not actually seeing or hearing both sides, how can you make a really good judgment? Like, unless you're looking and hunting for information and are looking at alternative views, you're not hearing alternative views. The media is literally all saying the same narrative that they've been given from whoever is calling the shots, and then you're not hearing anything, and you're like, it's like an insane asylum. I feel like we are really in an insane asylum at this point, and I don't know what it's going to take to be free of that, right? Like, how do we get people back to seeing things more critically, really questioning, comparing what you've previously experienced to what is happening now, right? The division isn't helping us. It's not. It's not helping any of us. Like, I don't want anything bad on my fellow humans. I want us all to be thinking clearly, be connected to our source consciousness, God, whatever you believe in, have that connection and see clearly what is really going on, right? So as we're here, I'm doing some dishes, as you might have guessed if you're still watching around. I do appreciate if you are watching. But I thought I would pull some cards if there is any questions, because I do get a lot of really good information when I pull the cards. And I know it sounds kind of weird if you're not into this and like listening to your intuition. I did go, if you have been following me, I did go to the UAE by myself. And before I went, I pulled my cards. And it told me that there was going to be delays, and there was going to be delays. And it was interesting because that was what came up. It was like all these cards about delays and timing. And what ended up happening is it was really difficult to get there. I had delay after delay. I got kind of stuck in North Charlotte, which was just, I guess, an extra visit. I ended up leaving like 2 days later. I eventually did get there, but I had a lot of delays. So there is something about being able to use our intuition and use some kind of form of divination. Now, I know a lot of people may not agree with that, and that's okay. We don't all have to agree. There's lots of ways that we can get intuitive information from the divine. I find oracle cards work for me very well and give me a lot of information, and usually very accurate in when I ask a question. And it's that trusting that instinct that we are actually inherently very intuitive. However, we've been, kind of disconnected from that intuition. So I wanted to pull some things. So if there's anybody that has any questions, I would love to do that for you. My favorite cards, I've got my 2 sets that I really love. I love the Wisdom of Oracle cards, and I also really love the Quantum Oracle cards that I have here. So I've got the 2 decks available to pull some cards, pull some messages, find out, get some intuition on where we are going, maybe at least some guidance, right? Because they don't necessarily give us exactly straight up like what's going to happen, but they're going to give us guidance of where the energies are going to go. So why don't I just pull one on April? I haven't pulled for April yet, and I'd love to see maybe just one card right now. Let's just pull one card on where are we going to be for April? Like, what is the energy for the consciousness of humanity, right? Because as I was stating at the beginning of this video going live, I do wonder where the state of of a lot of people's minds are right now. Like, it's kind of weird. It is kind of weird. It's kind of weird how mentally unstable or instability. I don't really even know what the right words are, right? But let's pull. Like, I'm going to pull from the Wisdom of Oracle and get an idea, like, where is the energy going to go for the month of April? And so just give me a moment. I like to close my eyes and feel it out. I get this like gut instinct. So when I'm like rotating them and I'm like asking that question, what is the energy for the consciousness for April? How are we going to be on whole? Maybe not everybody, but on the mass. Oh, interesting. I got the tick tock. This is about divine timing. Interesting. So you can see how, like it's our perception of the time, but then the reality is it's this one is really interesting. This is going to be about like how we see ourselves going through this time. I think that's really what it's going to come down to. And I like to get a little more information because this one is like I've pulled this a few times, but let's go into it. I love to pull and get like what the cards actually say. And I do sometimes cheat and get the full details of it. And it's not cheating because, how much can you really memorize like one card really, right? All the cards memorized. I haven't been doing it since I was like 10, right? So I don't have them all memorized. But it is timelessness, divine timing, as I mentioned, and immeasurable time. So we're coming into some divine timing. So that's obviously where the consciousness is going, is we're going into some divine time. And these cards are great. There's actually about 5 different messages, but I'm going to go over the oracle message, the base message of this card. It's when humans created time, everything changed and contracted. People have come to look at life in a linear way, imagining that the past is behind them and the future is ahead of them. But what if that isn't true? What if everything, whether it's our creativity, beauty, chaos, and order, are all happening in the ever-present now? So the only moment that actually exists, and this is interesting because this does overlap with some of the information that I've come across about how time is not at all how we perceive it. So we perceive the past is behind us, the future's ahead of us. But really, none of that exists. Once the past is gone, all that really exists is the memory of that past, right? And the future isn't there yet. It has not yet manifested out. We exist in the ever-present now. And so I think the guidance for us is that we need to be, especially for this month of April, in the ever-present now, that the only moment we really have is right now, as I'm speaking to you. If you're watching it after the fact or after this has been live, that's your present moment at that moment. And it's kind of this interesting way of perceiving time, that there is no future, there is no past. Those are all perceptions of how we perceive time, right? And so it also talks about all you have is the time. You have all the time in the world to co-create the life you desire. So release your agenda. So whatever we might think, if we think we're falling behind in time or we think we need to speed it up, we have to release that. There is divine timing. Like things happen in the time that they're meant to happen. We need to let go of having to shape each moment with our expectations and knowing that what is yours will never be withheld from you. And that we are in miracles right now. Like this is a time of miracles. And they can happen right now in this ever-present now. So I think this is an interesting, on just pulling one card for the month of April, that it really is about time. Divine timing, the ever-present now, the perception of us trying to control, whether we perceive we're ahead or backwards, we're not. There is divine timing. And the miracles happen in the ever-present now, the more we can be in the moment right now. And I feel like that's a really good message for us as we go into April, right? Like, can we be here in this present moment? Not concerned about what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened before or after, but as much as possible in this exact moment, right? Letting go. Like, as I mentioned, I'm going to be traveling back to Canada in the next week. And, there's a lot of things that I could be stressed about, anxious about. Well, how is this going to be? How is this? How is that? Well, it doesn't really matter because that moment hasn't happened. When that moment happens, and if I have to be anxious or stressed at that moment, I guess that's going to happen. But coming back to being right here in this moment is the only thing that actually matters. And the reality is probably in this moment that you're watching it, everything's good. Hopefully where you're at, it's sunny, it's becoming sunny today. I know it said it was going to rain, so it may rain later. But at this ever-present moment, even if I'm concerned about mental state of people, it's all good right now, right? Like everything's totally fine, like I'm having this conversation with all of you beautiful people and beings, and whatever happened before I got on here doesn't really matter. I struggled. I'm not gonna lie. My past moment, I attempted to go live on my laptop. It did not work. I don't know why it didn't work. It just would not load up. That's the past. I've let that go. That ever-present moment is gone. And I was successful in getting the ever-present moment of the message of the live up through my cell phone, right? So like the time thing is an interesting concept, and I feel like our perception as humanity is going to have to change on how we perceive time. And and we know if you've had this experience, time changes on where you mentally are at, right? So if you're really excited and anticipating something, it seems to go, and you're so totally absorbed. So it's something you're doing and you're totally absorbed. Hours can go by and feel like minutes. If it's something you're dreading and you don't like and it doesn't make you happy, it can drag on and feel like years and years and years, and it might have been a couple minutes, right? So the perception of time is also in our own minds, right? So I feel like that's really interesting on how that comes, is that time is going to be a very interesting part of how April manifests out. And in more of the spiritual, and especially in the astrological end, we're really now in the beginning of the year, which makes more sense. Like how our calendar has been, this Julian calendar, is kind of out of whack with how we would live, right? Because the new year in the middle of winter, that's not new. That's not the beginning of anything, right? So New Year's on how we have on a calendar doesn't really fit. Whereas if you have, we go to the beginning of Aries, started, I believe it was like March 20th or 21st, whichever date that is. Mind me, I'm not I love astrology. I do not have it all memorized. That makes more sense because now we're having spring. The new is coming. The winter is behind us. We might have a late winter or a spring snow or something, but you can tell we are now going into the new. So it feels much more in alignment that this would be the beginning of the new year as we come into end of March, beginning of April, than January. And so that's also part of our time and our perception, and coming back to working with the seasons. So it's interesting with how we've been controlled with time, calendar systems. And it's interesting because it really does kind of feel like it puts us out of balance, because if we're not actually in alignment with nature and natural time, we're kind of lost souls. We're kind of lost all over the place because, oh yeah, the new year started in January, but it doesn't feel like the new year because we're in the middle of winter, and nothing is new. It's right after the Christmas, and then we're going to this new year, and it's heavy and it's dark, especially if you're in North America, where the days slowly start to get a little bit longer by January because we've hit the shortest day of the year around on the 21st of December. So we're starting to get a little bit more daylight. However, we're not in the new yet, right? So the message really for April, as per my one card that I've only pulled, is this time and this perception of time. And maybe we're going to see time, feel like it's speeding up, slowing down. It's going to be a perception thing. But however, what we can really come back to is a trust in divine timing is what I get. Trusting that the divine is manifesting out things as we are able to perceive them, or as it's being supported, right? And that our perception of how these things work is probably going to start to change. And we have to trust that being in this ever-present now is really very important, because that's all we have is this moment. And even our past was really at one point our ever-present now, and the future yet isn't our ever-present now. So it's my fun little lecture on the ever-present now, right? So I guess that also comes back to going with being concerned, like me seeing things that I'm very concerned about, and why are people reacting this way, and why does it feel like they've forgotten the past, and where are they now in this ever-present now? Are they actually present, or are they concerned? Because when you're fearful of tariffs, or in Canada, the documentation, if you're going to spend more than 30 days in the US, that's not being in the ever-present now, when you're so angry about something that isn't actually in your moment right now, right? There's nothing to really be concerned about. It's like, okay, you take that little piece of knowledge, put it away. But you don't need to dwell on it. You don't need to worry about it, because that's not actually your ever-present now. So, we can be concerned that things will happen. We live in a very dynamic, chaos does bring balance, but a very dynamic world where things happen. We've had a whole bunch of earthquakes yesterday. I don't know about today. I haven't really been following it, but there's a lot of earth changes. And in that ever present now, yes, we take that moment, we send our love and our prayers to the people that have been affected by these things. And then we come back to our ever present now. How is our present now? Our present now is going to be different than their present now, for sure, especially if you have been affected by some type of situation. Could be a volcano, a flood, an earthquake, right? And each person's going to observe and have a different ever present now. And interestingly enough, as I was listening to somebody, they were talking about, if you think about different worlds or different planets, right? Let's go with planets. I don't actually know how any of this matrix works, but let's say Mars. Their ever present now is right now too. So if there is an entity being on Mars, they're having the same ever present now as we are, but they're experiencing life very different because they're in a different place, right? But we all simultaneously are existing in this moment. And this moment is the only thing we can actually control. So we can control this ever present moment, whether we decide to watch this video or just swipe it back. And then why do we choose those in that ever present moment? What motivates us to be in those moments? And that's an interesting question, because then you start getting into the philosophical ideas of this realm and this reality, right? So I'm always interested in what the next ever present moment will be, right? But I think also with the time and how everything is, I was having this conversation last weekend I was at a networking event, and I was talking about how we're so inundated with so much information, because we've got these devices, we've got our phones, our computers, we're constantly being inundated with information very quickly, whether on any type of social media we're on. And so our ever present moment is very non-present, because we're constantly being pulled out with what had happened in other places, or what's possibly going to happen, or what they're saying. And then we're also inundated with so much information. And I think about it, I was born in the 80s, and I've seen this development over the last 40 years, right? And I just imagine, like, back in the 80s or even the 90s, like when I was in high school, if I was meeting up with a friend, they just had to wait for me. I couldn't call them and text them if something happened. Like, my parents told me I had to stay and do some more chores, so I was actually going to be late for meeting up with them. They just had to wait. We'd have to call them old school and hope there was a phone there, or use a pay phone. Those were things where you had phones and you put quarters in them, and then you could call people, and you had phone numbers memorized. However, information was traveling faster in the 80s and 90s than it had been before, right? We weren't inundated with so much information in such a quick time, right? Because even in the 80s and 90s, and as the development of the internet, we started getting information more timely with television, radio, and stuff like that. But there was still that space between those ever-present moments. So whatever maybe happened overseas could still take a couple of days for you to find out, right? And so it is interesting, because that also feels like that is also related to the time card, like I was talking about with April, that it's speeding up. It's speeding up so quickly that how do we absorb so much that's happening? You want to be present, you want to know what's going on, and you're watching things, and it is overwhelming. So I completely get why we might not be mentally good, because there's just it feels like so much is happening. Is there so much happening, or is it because we're so connected and information travels so quickly that it feels like so much more is happening? Whereas back in the times before, if you think about even in the 60s, information traveling did not travel that fast. You weren't sitting there being inundated for however many hours you're up. I don't know, 14, 16 hours a day, however many hours you're up, of constant information, right? And then we wonder why we might be losing our minds. I think it makes sense, actually. Like, we're so inundated with so much happening in this ever-present now. And a lot of that stuff doesn't actually even matter to us, right? Like, okay, yes, I totally care about anybody that's been affected by any type of event, wars, and earthly events, like I mentioned, earthquakes, floodings, volcanoes. My heart goes out to those people affected in where they are. However, the reality is that so inundating, we kind of, no wonder we get pulled into emotional chaos. And then we feel like there's so much going on that how do we get our grounding? How do we come back to this moment and what really matters in our personal little sphere of life, or personal box? I'm drawing a box, saying a sphere. circle, a little bubble of life, is it is overwhelming, right? So I guess part of, if you are looking for some advice, because I really am interested to see how everybody else's mental state is, because I know for myself, I'm the first person to admit that I am not always mentally stable. I'm fully aware when I'm being pulled out of my energy, out of the ever-present now, feel like I'm losing my mind, going, what is happening? Why are these people doing this? I don't understand it. That practice of coming back to the breath. So as per my channel, Breathe Within Yoga, coming back to this moment, this ever-present now, and the breath, whether it's a meditation, whether it is me pulling a card to get some insight, to take myself back to being present with my intuition, with my gut instinct, with what is really happening right now. Because I can say this, and I'm practicing this, so I do not believe that I'm up here thinking that I've not mastered any of these things, because I consistently will still get pulled and suddenly get, really, oh my God, what is happening? Losing my mind. Maybe feeling angry, frustrated, anxious, whatever, all those emotions to the things that I'm perceiving around me. Then learning the constant practice of coming back to the ever-present now, because when I come back to my ever-present now, none of those things are actually a problem for me at this ever-present now. Now, fair enough, there will be moments in our lives where our ever-present now will be dramatically changed, because one of the biggest things that it's interesting, but it's one of the most dangerous things we do, is existing and being on the roads. Driving, being on a bus, being in a vehicle, like those are extremely actually dangerous. And our lives can change so dramatically in a millisecond through doing that daily activity that very few of us actually really think about. So our ever-present now can definitely be extremely changed in a very short amount of time. But unless that's happening, we need to get ourselves back to this ever-present now and what is really important. And it's going to come back to, who's important in your life? Who is your family? Is it actually people by name, your family? Or is it the family that you've made that are consisting of friends, your pets, your connection to source, God, consciousness, however you relate to it? Coming back to what is actually the importance of this ever-present now. And the more we can celebrate and bring ourselves out of those moments that we get pulled because we've read some news article or we're listening to somebody talking about all the not good things that are happening. And there's a lot of not good things happening that unfortunately, a lot of those things have been happening for a really long time. And so us becoming aware of it now doesn't necessarily change a lot, except for how we decide to go forward in the future. And I think that's what I want to take away as I'm going forward in these times of a lot of change, which are really stemmed by a lot of things coming out that we're learning about, right? And that, okay, we know about this and it bothers me. I don't like it. Let's come back to the ever-present now, and that it's not necessarily affecting me at this purposeful moment, so I can ground, be okay. But when things that are related to that come up, I can choose to do things differently, right? I can choose to see things differently. And this is a life practice that I have still not mastered. So as I said, I'll be the first to admit, I have not mastered it. I don't always feel mentally stable. And I will admit it. I'll go, man, I am crazy. Like, I feel crazy. And I feel like if you acknowledge and know you feel crazy, you're probably more sane than the people that don't admit that they're crazy and then think what they're thinking is sane, right? Because at least you can acknowledge that you can acknowledge it. You are aware of your own thoughts and feelings, which I think is part of the problem that we're going on right now, is that people are very much have turned off because they're so inundated with information. We don't even know how we actually feel. So if somebody's telling us we should be all upset about this, and that's what we think everybody else is, are we jumping on that bandwagon to be upset about it? Maybe it's something we don't like. Fair enough. Fair enough, may not be something that we find beneficial, but is it something that we really need to jump on and be upset about in that moment, right? And it's that practice coming back to, I don't like that. I don't want to give it more energy. I'm aware of it, but I'm going to let it go. So I guess let's see, what else can we say for the month of April? So really it's just this timing, divine timing, ever present now is really what they were talking about. I the consciousness, we might be really working on that. Maybe that's what a lot of us are coming through, being able to handle this a little bit better. So as we see all these changes and all these things happening, that we're really getting more balance through this divine timing and the TikTok, that it is outside of us. We don't control everything. The only thing we can really control is our own actions, and we can also train ourselves to change the way we perceive things. It is a training because it's a choice to decide to change the way we see things as well. So I'd love to know if anybody has any questions about any of the chaos going on. I'd love, in this ever present now, what do the divine guides have to say for us, right? What message can we benefit from as we go forward? So divine timing is definitely coming in as we come into the month of April, and then that timing, right? Like, trusting is a big one. Trusting the higher energies that are around us, right? That can be really difficult. We often want to give our power away and want to trust that somebody outside of us is going to save us. And the reality, there is some good people and they're going to do good things and they really want to help humanity. But really, we have to take the initiative in our own lives to change the way we perceive things, the way we decide to act in our lives, and the choices we decide to make, right? And it comes down, like, if we're not healthy and we're not feeling good, we have to take that initiative and that step to decide, are we going to eat better? What are we eating? What are we putting in our body? What are we putting in our minds? What is making us out of balance? And then we have to take that initiative. Other people can help guide us. Like that's the role I feel like I have in this reality, and I've always had, is that I can assist. I can assist through movement, breath, meditation. The things I teach and focus on are things that I personally am improving on all the time and constantly attempting to get better at. And I want to assist you, but you have to take that initiative. It's very much like, if you want to get in better shape or want to be healthier, you have to take that intention. You can hire all the health consultants, all the coaches, all of the, depending, life, work, whatever it is, you can hire all these people. All they're there for is to assist you to take those steps. You have to do the steps. You actually have to go forward and make the things happen in your own life. They can't come and physically make you go for a walk or do some breath work or eat better. You have to do those things. So we have to come back to being empowered as each of us to take this role of not looking for somebody outside of us to save us. So, you can say that depending on where, which is, there's all these divisive things. So it doesn't even matter what I say because somebody's not going to like what I'm going to say, right? Because I can say, well, okay, if we look at Trump, one side's going to say, well, he's cleaning this up. He's doing this. He's helping us. The other side's going to say, he's evil and we don't like it. And why is he cutting these things? And so you've got two different votes. You've got one side putting him up that maybe he's saving the US, and the other side going, oh, he's destroying the US. And that is completely a perception. And then the reality would be, you have to step back. First off, you have to step back and attempt to see it from both sides. That was a big awakening as I started going through my spiritual process, which has been, I really started going down the spiritual process in around 2011. And I started meditating on being shown the truth. And over the last 14 years, things that have come that I have been presented with and the people that I've seen and heard and spoke with, they came at a slow pace. So I got a lot of time to adapt to things. And one of the biggest things that I learned going down that hole was, well, what would be the motivation? So if I see this scenario that's happening, whatever it is, okay, we've got these people believe this side, and then we got this side saying this side. And I really had to pull myself out and go, okay, why would they say it on this side? What is their perception? Step it out, look at the side on the other side. Even if the side wasn't, I didn't necessarily maybe agree with at first, but why would they do it? Why are they saying it? Like, attempt to really pull ourselves out and be the observer. And I talk about this a lot. Like, it is difficult. It is difficult because we've been trained to not really listen to the intuition, not be the observer, and, you know, and again, everything's outside of us. It's not. We are the observers. And if we can pull back and be as neutral as we can to look at it, we can get a better understanding of the entire situation. And then when we make a decision on whatever the situation is, it's going to be a little clearer. It may not be perfect because we might still be missing a little bit of information somewhere, but we're going to get a better perspective of that, right? That would that's the biggest thing. And I feel like with the timing of what we're going through, it's going to be a lot of us having to really step out and observe through this time and then come back to that ever present now, like in your life. So whatever they're saying is happening, well, in your ever present moment, how is it affecting you? And if it's not affecting you negatively, bringing yourself back to that moment. And if you do need some help, I do have a bunch of meditations that you can follow. I've got a meditation list. Those help. You know, get moving. I've got breath work. I should put more breath work up, actually. I'll work on that, getting more breath work, because that is another way to kind of get into that state of being back into the now. And just going forward with it, right? So if anybody, I'd love to hear in the chat if anybody has any other things they'd like to hear about, but I can pull more on, you know, like, how is the relationship between Canada and the US? Like, I love the US, and it really hurts me to see so many people, like, in Canada just losing their mind and so angry at what is happening. And those are things that are, they really are outside their control. And changing the perspective that, you know, the US isn't our enemy. It never was our enemy. And I feel like there's some people that are attempting to make it our enemy so they can gain political traction. Because if you make, instead of having somebody look, it's the scapegoat. You're really causing the problem, but instead of taking ownership on the problem, you've been able to manipulate people to think that something else is the other problem, right? So then they're not looking at the actual problem. They're all distracted and angry at something else that you're saying, well, look over here. There's really the problem, right? So why don't I pull a card? I'll pull again from the Wisdom of the Oracle of how is this going to manifest? You know, how is this relationship between Canada and the US going to progress? I'll pull one card again, just get a kind of a feeling. How are we going to progress as we go into April, into this April of 2025? What is the energy on that? How are the divine guides? What is the relationship going to be like? So as I did before when I pulled, I like to close my eyes as I go through it until I get that intuitive feeling. Each person's got a different way in how they kind of connect to that intuition. So what would be the relationship? I think it's going to be okay. We're getting milk and honey. So this one, you can see the rainbow. There is some coming to the end, the rainbow, right? It's kind of like the treasure at the end of the rainbow, milk and honey. We're going to find our balance. You know, this is really good. I'm happy to pull that. That makes me feel better because, you know, this is very divisive times, and I don't want to be divided. I don't want to be divided from my neighbors. I don't want to be divided. We've been divided during, like, all of the 2020s have really been about dividing us on people that got a medical procedure versus the people that didn't get the medical procedure versus people who support Trump and then people that don't support Trump. And then we've got in Canada, we've got the people that love the liberals versus the conservatives. And it's like always this constant fight. None of this serves us. It really doesn't. But with this message, it really talks about the taste of prosperity. So we're going to come to prosperity. Opportunities born of authenticity, nurturing abundance, and trusting that your needs will be met. So we're gonna find a way through this, that there's gonna be some great opportunities through this once we can step back, which I think is gonna be this timing, this divine timing. We're gonna step back, and there's gonna be a lot of prosperity between Canada and the US, and we're gonna come to some like balance. I feel like that's really what it's saying, like some kind of balance that, you know, it's going to authentically be born. I don't know how much it's going to be really based on what the political landscape is. I do wonder if it's going to really come down to us stepping outside of that and us deciding that no, if it's not coming together to work together to be prosperous as North Americans, we're very prosperous. And the fact that we're US, Canada, both of us, our economies are not doing well. And that was bad policies, really, unfortunately. If we do put a clear view, the last governments and the existing government in Canada are really the problem to what has happened. And so that's really taken away from our prosperity when we're just making up money out of nowhere, right? And we're taking away the value towards what you're doing. Like the inflation, the increase, like everything's gone up. Most people are making more money. Somebody I was listening to earlier today was saying, like, they're saying the average inflation in Canada over the last few years was like 17 to 20%. I'm sure it was actually much higher than that. But even if we go and say, okay, let's say it's 17%, most people aren't making 17% more, but everything overall is costing you 17% more. So where do you take that money from, right? And we do need to have that abundance, because there's no reason that we're not the most abundant nations. We have such resources, we have so much, but then there's things outside of us. There's people that are not even part of our governments that are making decisions that are not beneficial to us and have been calling the shots. And you know, it is interesting to me, especially if I come back to Canada, about how when the lockdowns happened, we had so many businesses, and we still have so many businesses closing and leaving. And I know this is happening in the States, but I can really only compare because I am from Canada. But it was already, like, with the lockdowns, like, so many businesses never were able to come back. You shut them down for any period of time, there's no way they can recover, because you still have costs for your building. You still have costs for just having that business exist, right? And there was no push to support Canada and Canadian businesses and make sure that they don't shut down. And then so there wasn't there. We had people just didn't even seem to care because they were so concerned about something that, as we look at it, wasn't really a big deal. Okay, so nobody seemed to care supporting Canadian businesses, keeping Canadian businesses during that time, the early 2020s. Now we come, and because people are so out of whack and confused and angry, it's buy Canadian, support Canadian, and now they're all pro-Canada products. And I go, like, this doesn't really make sense. Where were you when we had all these businesses already shut down? I don't know if they don't kind of realize that we've already lost so many Canadian companies that's also going to contribute to attempting to support Canadians, because we already have all these companies that are gone, that have been demolished through bad policies over, even past, before 2020, with a lot of bad policies in Canada that have destroyed certain industries in Canada. And now you're gonna support Canadians, but you didn't see a value before. It is confusing. However, as we're pulled, the relationship is going to get better between the two neighbors. We're gonna authentically come into more opportunities of abundance, which is fantastic. And it talks about that we are entering a sweet time in our lives, enjoying the land of milk and honey, that everyone wants to experience. And that is true. We all want to be prosperous and abundant. And I agree, like, there's no reason we aren't prosperous and abundant. We have so much especially in North America. I can't necessarily talk about other countries, but in North America, we have so much. And the fact that we have, again, in Canada, we have homeless encampments in all of our major cities, and it gets to minus 41 Celsius, which is essentially the same as Fahrenheit. And we've got homeless. We've got all these people that don't have homes. We have so much land, but there's certain things like government policies that stop it and make it really difficult to get homes built. Or opening up, we have the same thing that's happening here in the US. We have all this immigration, and it's much more dramatic when you have a very small population, because our population prior was about 30 million people. We have 10 million more people on top of 30 million people. That's a third more than we had before. And it's not spread across, like, that makes a huge difference in a very short period of time. That's in like less than 10 years, we added another 10 million people. Where do you put them? Where do the jobs go? How do you create them? Especially when you shut down jobs and you shut down businesses and you shut everything down. Well, you're literally making this swirl of chaos over those things, right? And so it's good to see that we are gonna go into a more prosperous time. It's going to be more abundant. It's going to be more in aligned. Opportunities will lead you to your best life now, and we need to be open to them. And we're going to get a taste of the sweet life. So we're going to have to. We're going to have to. Oh, this is a great quote. These times are precious and only come when you're in your authentic zone. So this talks about being, again, like I pulled before, the ever-present now, right? So we're in our authentic zone, wearing the world as a loose garment, and not wanting to be able to be nourished in both ways, tangible and subtle, yet wanting to be nourished in both tangible and subtle ways. Abundance is an energy that you are a living part of. All your needs are being met, and we are being given that in every moment. So I think that's really what we need to do, is we are the consciousness of this realm, and the more we can put our ever-present moment on what we want, putting our energy into what we actually want, not what we don't want. So we don't want this, we don't want that. It's coming down that with this timing, divine timing, and all of this, is we need to put our values, thoughts, energies into that, into what we actually want to create. What do we want to see as humanity? We may not all see, the utopian vision. I would like to see truth be the norm, that every person in all countries and all politicians actually have to be truthful. They can't be funded by corporations. They can't have ties to corporations. That one big thing I feel like would really help us, on no matter where you're at, would be making political, if they're, whoever's in a government and however it's structured, that they get paid the average for wherever they're located. So if you are a politician in some state, what is the average of what you make in that state? That's what you get paid. And you only get a raise if it's voted on. And you cannot have ties to corporations, and you cannot get handouts to do and make policies that benefit corporations, especially if that's not what people want. And it's interesting over the years, like seeing all these times that people, especially in, like, as I mentioned, I'm from Canada, seeing things as simple as daylight savings time. I was talking about this. In the province I'm from, Alberta, we actually had a vote on this, and we voted to get rid of it. So we don't want to have this time change. The province next to us, which is equivalent to a state, Saskatchewan, doesn't do time change. The government at that time decided, even though they let us vote on it, just decided to negate the fact that we didn't want it anymore, decided no, because a corporation came in, which was WestJet, and they said, oh, this is too much hassle, it's going to cost us too much money, and it's too difficult to work around not having the time change. We have Arizona that doesn't change times. We have Saskatchewan that doesn't have change times. If you look up on a world map time changes, most of the world doesn't actually participate in any time change. It's only in Western countries. So it's very strange, because a corporation has more power than what the people voted and wanted. This is the time where we need that to change. Like that is clearly where we struggle, is that even if people don't want it, the governments don't listen to us. They don't really care. Not in Canada. And it's really unfortunate, because if we're not a sovereign country in Canada. We've never been a sovereign country. We're a monarch. We're not democracy, and we definitely don't really necessarily want to be a democracy. We would definitely want to be more like you guys in the States. We're more of a republic. Would actually be better rounded out. But what's most unfortunate is that in Canada especially, unelected officials have more power than anybody we elect. So it doesn't actually matter who you vote for. We have our Senate, which is unelected, and our Governor General, and they can overrun anything that we might push through. So let's say our politicians actually want to do something that for you, Canadians, people, whoever, their citizens are complaining about something and they want this change, like the time change. We want this change. We don't want to have time change anymore. It's not good for us. It doesn't benefit us. It's out of date. There's no reason to have it. Okay, they go to do it. Well, it's completely shut down now, either because there's corporations that come and are able to have more power than your vote, or unelected officials. The Senate stops it, the Governor General decides to stop it. And so it doesn't even matter that the mass wants it when you've got systems in place that aren't even elected that can override what you, the people, want, right? So it's interesting times because we are going to, it's divine timing. This stuff that's happening now is all about divine coming back into that balance with what hasn't been imbalanced, and I really feel like that's part of it. And between us in North America, we are going to come into a much more prosperous time. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be some chaos through this process and a lot of things happening that might pull us into like anger, depression, anxiety, stress. When we come back to the moment and when we come back to what we're grateful for, we can't be in those. So it's practicing, and my guidance would be to everybody, if you've listened to me this long, would be practice gratitude and coming back into that moment. Because when you can be grateful, you can't be in that anger. You're not going to be able to be depressed. The attitude of gratitude is a higher vibration as well, and it's going to pull you out. And if we can all find that gratitude and coming back into the present moment, we're going to manifest out and change things very quickly. We are vibrational. Everything around us is vibrational. Even that rock that thinks that looks like it's solid, it's just moving at a slower vibration. Everything's vibration. And if we can get ourselves back into being in more alignment every day, more in trusting as well the divine God consciousness, that there is going to be a balance, that the truth is coming out, which can be really difficult because there's a lot of truths we may not really want to digest. I know over these years, as I mentioned, I've been going down the rabbit hole for 14, 15 years. And there's so many truths that I came across that I wanted to fight. Like internally, I learned something and did not want to believe it. Did not want to believe it. Not at all. But what was interesting is the more that I trusted and meditated that the divine would show me the truth, the more, even if I learned something and I didn't necessarily want to believe it or see it for what it really was, I would over time start to get more evidence, more proof, more experience that would validate what I was learning. And then I have to be more open to digesting it. Well, our time is changing. We're speeding up. This stuff is coming really quickly. So those that weren't lucky enough, I guess I was lucky, except for that I've literally felt like I've lost my mind over the last 10 to 12 years because I would be talking about things and everybody thought I was crazy. All those things are coming out now. And if you never digested that any of those things were really real, it's going to be a lot more difficult to be okay with what you're seeing, especially if you're very reliant on the way this old system has been. So if you're very reliant on the healthcare, well, what's happening is Canada's, not really good. Free healthcare is not free. Our taxes are ridiculous. There's people that die in waiting rooms waiting to be helped. We have a massive problem with maids, which is medically assisted. It's essentially medically assisted knocking yourself out, like taking yourself out, that you're no longer here, okay? That is becoming a solution because there's not enough money, and we've lost so many people in our health system over the last 5 years. It is it's almost a skeleton to what it used to be, right? And so it's these things that if you're very reliant on it and you trust that they've been telling you the truth, and you start to learn that, well, big pharma didn't really do their due diligence when they were testing this drug, and they've allowed this drug to be given to people, and yet it really doesn't work, but they're allowed to because it's legal. Interesting story. I came across a lady we were discussing, and she was telling me a story, and she had massive liver problems. She didn't know why. She didn't know why she had these liver. She's not a raging alcoholic, nothing like that. Didn't know why. Through her own experiences and things that happened, she did eventually kind of come to the end of where she found out why her liver wasn't functioning properly. She was put on for 13 years when she was younger, like when she was a child, she was put on ADHD drugs. And over those 13 years, they literally destroyed her liver. And they're still giving these to children. And they are well known that really the kids in the 90s were the experiment, and they've learned from it, but they're still putting it into people. And it's known to destroy your liver. And it's known to do it, I don't know what the percentages are, but we're not, this is a problem. This is a problem. If we know these things really hurt people and the outcome is very minimal to how many people it helps, if it doesn't really help but causes more injury, why are we doing it? Who benefits from you not feeling good? And that's a truth that's hard to swallow, especially since we've been raised that the system cares about you, right? That there's lots of good, well-being people in the system that have been lied to as well. So your doctor may not know all the information of it because they're being sold that this is a great product. If this kid has ADHD, this is the solution, and we'll give you a kickback for getting it, and then they'll get whatever information in this little bubble that they're given. And then they may not have enough time because they're overworked to really do a lot of research in it, right? And so there's well-meaning people that actually want to help that are being bamboozled and lied to as well. So we're going through this great change. And that's just an example of how, like, so many of our systems, they're very fraudulent. And removing these fraudulent systems will help us in the long run. It's going to be difficult, especially if you've been very attached to these systems, right? And I feel for you because like I said, I've mentioned, over many, many years have slowly changed my perspective of pretty much most things. If I would have been doing a live back in 2010, be a very different person having this conversation than now, with all the information and all the life experiences and all the holes that I have gone down. So with time, we learn things, but as we pulled for April, time is changing. Time is accelerating. Divine timing is coming, and we're coming to what I feel like is a clash of the titans, the clash of the information, the clash of reality, where those things that maybe weren't truthful are starting to come out as truth. And I guess it's up to each of us to decide if we're going to take this truth on, digest it, and decide to make different decisions, or if we're going to be in denial and fight, right? Fight the information we're getting, get angry about it, say this can't be real, blame somebody else, right? Like, it's very much like I was saying about our government, essentially trying to gaslight that all our financial problems are due to the tariffs that are coming, but those are very recent. Our financial problems have been for years now, and it's this weird denial, right? And everything is, we're very much in strange times. And what I would love to communicate the most is that there is people out there. It may feel like for myself, it feels like there's not enough, but there may be people out there there is people out there that really do care about humanity and want us to, like myself, want us all to come together, to work together, to see the problem that we are all facing. We're never all going to see things eye to eye. We're not maybe going to necessarily agree on everything, but there is some inherent problems that don't benefit any of us. And it is the corruption in our governments. The Western society governments are very corrupt. And, and we might have to start to look at maybe the way people are handling things right now even if we maybe don't like them, we might have to start to really look and be like, well, why would they be doing this? What would be the benefit on this side? Why would this side say this? Like, start to really become the observer in this reality over this month. Trust the timing. Find a way to bring ourselves out of those emotional chaoses as much as we can, back to the ever-present now, because it's all about that time, right? Because the only moment we have is this moment right now. Bring yourselves back into that ever-present now so we can manifest going forward and not be blaming. Like, the idea, like, the reality is there is actually lots of people that are blameworthy, and I have to trust that there will be accountability as more and more of these truths do come out. I have to trust that because I myself cannot hold them accountable. Who am I? I'm just a person here, a human spiritual being, living my little life. I cannot hold certain people accountable because nobody cares what I say, really, right? I have to trust that as these things come out, that we will together hold these people accountable. Hold them to a higher level of ethics, a higher level of standards, a higher level of moral integrity. And that first and foremost, if it is not good for humans, it's not here. And that's really it, is finding out, unfortunately, I most things that we have in our society, especially Western society, is not good for us. You know, our food's not good for us. Our healthcare system isn't really that great for us. If I break a bone, great. I love the medical system. They're great for traumatic events, but that's about it. You know, our education system is very questionable. And the people working in the system, like, I keep seeing all these weird stories of lots of teachers being predators and lots of really disturbing things. And it doesn't surprise me because even growing up in the 80s and 90s, after I graduated, we had teachers in my high school that have thus been arrested for being predators, which we all talked about. The students talked about it. The students knew. It was like this weird denial. And so it's this thing where there's got to be some accountability coming. And I do believe we're at that timing point. And it may seem chaotic because as these systems become apparent to how broken they are, we might fight with them. We might really fight because we don't want to believe that it wasn't for our benefit, or what we consented to has really actually been not good for us. And that's a hard pill to swallow, is that there is self-responsibility that we were participating. Fair enough, we've been lied. There's been a lot of lies and a lot of smoke and mirrors to keep us not believing or not seeing necessarily the truth. However, we have to step into that when we start to see things, and if we can look more critically from the outside, we can make a change. So I guess that's my preaching for today, feeling on that. I don't have I don't have the answers of how we're going to fix it all, except for us coming together and having to be there too. And if we are aware and we have been treated poorly based on talking about the truth or talking about things that make people uncomfortable, maybe being a little bit empathetic as people start to learn these things, if they can digest them. I don't know if everybody's going to be able to digest them. I don't know how many people we're going to lose from it, because like I said, like, I do wonder how everybody's doing. How are you doing out there? And can we help each other come back to levity, come back to neutrality, come back and, you know, just give each other a hug and be there as a human, supporting another human that wants the best for humanity, right? Which I feel like isn't a lot to ask, but it really is a lot to ask, because we are ran in a very anti-human system. And whether you believe it or not, when you start to see things, you start to go, well, this isn't for us. It's not for us to thrive and grow and become prosperous, independent beings. And unfortunately, one of those is government handouts. Those do not give incentives for you to step into your power to thrive and be prosperous. Totally believe when somebody's down on their luck, something bad has happened, and they need help, we need to help that person. You lose everything in a fire, earthquake, flood, we need to support you and help you. You're in an abusive relationship, you get out of it. You need some help getting set up, we need to be there to support you. temporarily. That's a solution. You need to be able to go out and start becoming a productive member of society. Handouts are not the solution. Handouts don't incentivize us to become better. Handouts make us complacent and then also make us very reliant on the system giving us the handouts. And then if you are concerned about the digital ID and CBDCs, which is digital money where everybody gets the same, which is very... That system doesn't work. Historically has never worked. It's a problem. It's a problem expecting somebody else to really do things for you, right? But however, if we work together, we can solve a lot of these problems. And that was what I was feeling. I was feeling like that. That's really why I wanted to come on live today, is to encourage, have this little conversation. Hope some people would communicate. I got a little bit, but then when I start going down the actual truth and deeper into the philosophy, it does, you know, people drop away. People don't really want to hear that. They want a quick fix of whatever it is, whether it's anger, happiness, laugh. Don't necessarily really want to talk about the deeper things, right? And I get that. It's not comfortable. I think we need to embrace the discomfort. Embrace the discomfort, because the reality is being comfortable stops us from making the right decisions. Because if we are comfortable, we're not going to do things to make ourselves uncomfortable. Like, unless you've changed your philosophy. Like, we've been living for the last year now completely in discomfort. My husband has literally thrown me into the point that there's nothing that I can guarantee, rely on. There's nothing. I don't even know where we're going to be the next day. We know we need to get to a certain place. We know we have to certain things that we have to do within a certain time frame. But I talk to family like, well, where are you going to be here? Where are you going to be there? When are you going to be due? I don't know. I have no answers, because we're literally living moment by moment in the ever-present now and just going with the flow. And it's completely uncomfortable. But what has happened over this year of living in complete discomfort is that the discomfort becomes comfortable. Because you start going, I'm always just in this now. Right now, what am I doing? I'm talking on the video. I'm talking to whoever on YouTube that might be listening to me. That's what I'm doing right now. What am I doing in my next moment? Probably finish the dishes. What I'll be doing later? I've got a few things, but I don't know exactly. I'm not planning out every moment. I'm going with the flow, trusting the divine, and being okay, because we were forced into discomfort, completely forced. And I feel like that's what I've learned through the 2020s, is that things outside of your control can completely force you to have to do things differently. And so either we embrace the change and start to decide that we're just going to do what we want to do and not care about it. Like, people have gone, well, how can you guys travel and this and that and this? We're just making it happen. We're just doing it. We're just doing it. And worry about it at that time. You know what? What does it matter? The security blanket is gone. Because the reality is this ever-present moment can be very short. My next ever-present moment may not even exist. So if I don't do what I want to do right now, and I'm going to worry about the future, worry about the past, we're not doing anything. We're not going anywhere. And is my ever-present moment lost? Is it lost when we're just in that? But since I've been going on now for 78 minutes, let's pull one final card. I'll pull from my other deck that I brought, the Quantum Oracle cards, of, those that are watching that made it this far. What is the message from the divine guides that they can give, for us as we go forward until the next time that I'm inspired to come back and discuss some more ever-present nows, right? So what is the message for all of those that have made it to this point in the video? We got the Loving Man reversed, and that is a people card. So that's interesting that I was talking about people, and let's see what the Loving Man reversed actually means. I have to go under the people. So it is people, and it is our number 5, and I will tell you what that actually means, because I don't know if I've ever pulled that card. I don't actually think I've ever pulled that card. When the Loving Man is reversed, there is an energy of loss or desires unmet. You may be longing for a relationship to take shape with someone you already know, or you may be hoping to sooner meet the love of your life. Everything seems to be stalling. Seems quite appropriate, right? We're kind of in that time, the time that we pulled earlier. And time feels like it's slipping away, which is what I was talking about. Like, we were talking about that earlier if you're watching. There may also be some distance between you and another person. We've got that divisiveness I was talking about. Lots of distance between us and fellow humans, right? We're very divided, especially in North America. This could be an emotional sense, such as feeling dismissed or by someone important to you. It may be romantic, maybe not, but it could also be in a physical separation. While this situation may not feel like it is in your best interest now, you'll find that it is actually freeing you. So through this divisiveness, this is our learning. It's freeing us to strengthen and become stronger. It is important to maintain your balance. We're talking about that ever present now. Bring yourself back to this moment, the breath, what is actually the gratitude and what is important. Open your heart and the gratitude to seeing the opportunity and adventure ahead, even as you're letting go of the past. I feel like this is just summarizing up what I was talking about during this whole video. Remember what the consciousness of love creates. Think about the way you want to be treated and set a strong intuition to do and say loving things to yourself. This will open the road and shorten the distance between you and the tender-hearted love to come. That's beautiful. So really, what we're being summarized is really what I was talking about. It's all coming to this end, that there has been lots of distance. There's been lots of separation between us. We're very divisive and, very divided here in North America. And we need to really maintain the balance in ourselves, love ourselves, and take care of ourselves first. Because again, as I mentioned, we're frequency. And if we take care of ourselves, that will raise our frequency and will assist as we go through this time. And remember, with the gratitude, it changes our frequency. The love changes our frequency. So even if we're struggling and we're angry because we can't believe somebody has a Tesla or somebody can like Trump or whatever this divisiveness is, we need to, again, come back to that energy of going that we are all common together, is that there's a commonality. We're humans. And we really do all, at a key level, I truly believe, want the same thing. Unless you're like a narcissistic psychopath, which is probably then you're working in the government and you don't care about people at all. But the majority of us are actually decent human beings that give a crap about each other and really want the best. That's why we get emotionally enraged when we see things that we don't necessarily understand, which makes it worse when we don't have the full view of a situation, right? So when we don't have all the information and they're censoring things like that they're doing in Canada, this makes it more difficult. So we really have to pull back, come back into that loving energy, be okay with our, with everyone around us and what our mental state is, and be like, I'm there to care about you, even if you've lost your mind, even if you've got derangement syndrome of whatever it is, whatever it could be, right? Like you're so angry at this or angry at that. I understand that I love you and I care about you and I see the divine in you. And we are all here, and all we really want is to be prosperous, abundant, and proceed. And that is an inherent truth. I really do believe that the majority of us do want that. And it's going to be interesting as we continue through this. We've come through this solar eclipse, which is if you follow astrology, we're coming into even more insane times. If you thought this period has been insane, some of the things I've seen with emotional values is it's going to get more emotional. Emotional values doesn't necessarily mean bad or good. We're just going to get very emotionally triggered. And the more we can come back to leveling ourselves out, back to a space, back to the ever-present now, which is going to be key in this time, I think it's going to be a little easier. Not that it's going to be super easy. I'm not going to give that, but I think it will be easier. So on that, since I haven't had a lot of comments since I started, because when they start going down my little lecture that I don't get too many comments, and I won't take it personally, because, you know, I get it that, you know, what I say can make people very uncomfortable when we start talking about it, and we're not all going to see eye to eye. However, I want to reduce the divisiveness. I do want to reduce it, that we can, you know, agree to disagree. Okay, you don't like that, that's fine. Let's go forward. Let's go forward with what is actually best for us. Can we all agree to see more clearly that it is better for us to not have money wasted on corruption, not have money be sent to foreign countries? In Canada, we had something like, I don't know, it was like $50 million or something ridiculous. Maybe it was only 10, I don't know. It was still a stupid amount that was sent over to help fund research on sun cancer for albinos in South Africa. Like, is that a joke? What percentage of the population are of albinos, let alone in South Africa? And we're sending millions of dollars there, and you're going to tell me that that wasn't corrupted? I think we can mostly agree that there needs to be more priority on where things are going. And if it is not for the people that are paying for it, it needs to go. If it's not coming back to assist your fellow man to get up, be empowered, and become a productive member of society, that funding needs to stop. I feel like that's valid. I feel like it's valid that if we start really going down to basics of, if this isn't helping us, it needs to go. And we need to relook at how we're doing it. And, you know, and stepping away from the things that don't help us. So I really intend that you have a beautiful Saturday as we go through this time. I really intend, I don't want to say hope, because hope is kind of disempowering, but I'm going to intend that the worst of the energies for the earthquakes are over, because there's been some, you know, it's very heartbreaking what has happened and what is happening, and, you know, but we're getting inundated. The sun affects our planet more than our CO2 does, and that is a truth, and we're getting some weird things coming from the sun now, and it's intense, and that could create more volcanoes and earthquakes and weather things that may not be things we really want to see, but it's coming from our sun. It's not coming from you. And again, it's these truths that we need to really kind of go, well, what is the, you know, the actual truth? Because there is, for a lot of things, there is an actual truth. It's, we're just being lied to, covered up to, and then not given complete information, right? So I empower you and encourage you to find your center, your ever-present now. When you find yourself pulled out of that moment, find your breath, ground, bring yourself as much as you can back to that moment, and be here as a supportive energy for the good to come out of everything. Even if we don't understand, and even if we're struggling and may not see something as good, the divine, as we pulled, it's divine timing right now. We're going into a time of divine timing. Things are going to change, and maybe we need to just change our perspective to see where the good is in some of these things. And that's the same for me as well. So you have a beautiful Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you do have any questions, you'd like to talk, I'm open. You can contact me through my YouTube. It goes to my website. You can email me from there. You know, please do go and listen to my meditations. Do some breath work. Give me some feedback. I'd love the feedback to see if it actually will assist you and does assist you, because that is my intention with this channel, is to help heal and serve humanity. That has been my intention for many years, and what I've done in the choices of what I do is for humanity. And the more we go down this, the more I want to assist people and find the people that can assist me too, that mutually we assist each other, because I'm definitely not perfect, like I mentioned, and I definitely get thrown out and pulled out and going, what am I seeing? Oh my gosh, this is insane. Has everybody lost their mind? And we all need to assist each other. We need to be humans assisting humans and trusting the divine and doing that ever-present now work of gratitude and love. Beautiful day, everybody. I love you, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.